The way I'm going to sort of demonstrate exactly what's going on is with this pane of glass. So just to be blatantly obvious about this, you cannot use a pane of glass for training. That kind of goes without saying. Now, there's definitely many of us who don't have the luxury of a crack training wall at our local climbing gym or even in our home, whether that's a crack hangboard or something in our cellar or some wood that we put together to make some jams. And I found that there's a exercise that you can do with some weights, which is the plate weights that you would use on a bar, that can mimic somewhat the same kind of strength or intensity that you would have in a hand jam, but just using the floor and these plate weights. It's really important that when you set up the positions for this particular exercise is that you find comfortable positions under which to do this. It's quite intense, it's quite sore initially if you don't find comfortable positions, and you may want to pad out the backs of your knuckles on this exercise because there is a fair amount of force going through your fingers. The way I'm going to sort of demonstrate exactly what's going on is with this pane of glass. So just to be blatantly obvious about this, you cannot use a pane of glass for training. That kind of goes without saying. But I want to just show you the hand positioning that I'm using within it. And so in a minute, this is going to represent my weight plate that I'm going to be using to place weight on top of my hand. I'm going to place my hand underneath that pane of glass or that plate of weight. And I'm then going to make a hand jamming position inside. So my thumb is tucked in, my fingers are making contact with that pane of glass. And then from there, I'm going to place my finger or some pressure near my wrist. And I'm then going to contract with my fingers and my thumb to lift that plate off the floor. So you can see there's a small amount of pivoting on that pane of glass, which in a minute will be a weight. And I can squeeze and I can create the kind of intensity and the specificity of a hand jam. So I could hold it in that position, but likewise I can just do reps of lifting that. So I swap that out and I now replace this for a, well, we've got 5 kilo weight, is that I'm placing the edge of it near my wrist. I'm tucking my thumb in so you can just see my thumb poking through the hole there. And I've got a hand jamming position inside. And then what I'm going to do from there is I'm going to lift that weight off the floor and I can do reps of that. You do it with 5 kilos, feels really easy. You can do quite a lot of those, but then really add the weight up. And let's say if I grab all of these and place my 20 kilos on top of my hand, is from here, I've really got quite a bit of intensity. Bring my hand up, hold it all the way up. Yeah, that's pretty hard. Back down. Holding it up, back down. I'm really working the forearm flexors, which are specific to hand jamming. I'm working wrist strength, specific to hand jamming. And I'm also working the strength that I have within my thumb and also the lumbricals within the hand, which is specific to hand jamming. It's a really nice method for simulating and faking hand jamming. Like all strength training exercises, you want to build up to this slowly. So don't max it out straight away and go mad on it doing 1 rep maxes. Build it up over a period of weeks so that you get accustomed to the specificity of this exercise and you're allowing those soft tissue structures to adapt to this particular exercise. Another really important point on this plated weight exercise with the hand jams is that you'll find if you move the plate around on your hand and engage your thumb in different positions, this can really change the intensity of the exercise and to some extent the way in which your hand is moving in that hand jam. So keep some level of variability in it. Just because you find one position works really well for you and you can lift 20, 30 kilos, don't think that's the only position where you can train in. Move it around into positions where you can't perhaps lift as much weight, but use your hands and your thumb in a different position, a different way, so that you're still having some kind of training, adaptation and improvement in your strength levels by changing and making that variation within the jam. One element of crack climbing and the strength training or even the power endurance or endurance training associated with it is this specificity of the arm and elbow position in finger crack climbing. And what you'll notice is when you go finger crack climbing, your hands are invariably very central to the body, and they're quite often very high compared to our chest or our shoulders. So we really try and relax on the arms and keep them straight a lot of the time. We're very central. And that's very different to normal climbing. When we're on a face climb, we often have our hands out to the side. It can obviously be very wide or slightly above our shoulder in terms of the positioning. Now, a way in which to train that ability to be able to pull down and lock and use a lot of arm strength in that very central position is by using a pulley and a set of weights. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to make sure our body is in a very central position, our hand is in a central position, and our elbow is out to the side. So we're really stressing and working the brachioradialis in the arm so that we're working as hard as possible in a climbing specific manner. Don't get the intensity too high on this, because what you'll find is your form will really drop down. And whilst I'm not really an advocate for 100% the very strictest form in every single case, because I think you can get obsessed about this, on this particular exercise, it's really important to keep the elbow in the right position on this, right out to the side, and keep it specific to that crack climbing movement. So I think I would say in this one, really don't head up towards 80-90% of maximum intensity. Keep it at 70% or lower. So here I have must be 6 kilos, 5-6 kilos on the end of my weight. So not a great deal of weight. A rope that leads up to a pulley, and I'm going to pull down the other end so that now I have to exert around 5 kilos of force to be able to pull these weights upwards. So I'm going to grab the rope, and you can use a handle, just the end of a rope with a knot in, and I'm going to grab this in a position which I think is specific to crack climbing, so thumbs down within the crack. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my elbow out to the side, and I'm going to keep that in a position that I would be using when I'm crack climbing. I'm going to extend that hand up, and then I'm going to pull it down towards my chest. So really working on this brachioradialis muscle in particular in the arm and bringing that down. So I'm not extending all the way up to the top and not using my shoulder very much in this movement and rotating that shoulder backwards. I'm fixing that shoulder and I'm just working on that lock position there. Keeping that elbow high, not bringing the elbow down low, just fixed out to the side, specific to crack climbing, and you'll really start to feel the burn in your arm in that position after a while. Same again on the other side. I'll swap that over. Is elbow out, hand really central to the body, extending up, and bring it down. It's a really good exercise, that one. I've used that a lot over the years, in particular for finger crack climbing. So the last exercise, which I think is really good to do on a pulley system, is something which actually relates to the exercise that we did on the crack, which was a low lock position. And you know how in that exercise we were pulling our hand right down to, or as far as we could get to, towards our waist, was we can do exactly this same position with the pulley and rope setup, where we're bringing that hand right down to our waist. We're using a lot more tricep, and we're working on a much lower, deeper lock than we would use in a face climbing move. So when we climb on a face, the angle of our wrist often prevents us from doing a very, very low lock unless we're extending right onto the kind of the tips of our fingers. But on a crack, because we're jammed into the crack, we can actually get very, very low lock positions right down by our waist, even a little bit lower actually, that I've done in the past as well, almost akin to an undercut move. So you'll see that we can do this exact same exercise on a pulley and rope setup. And the way I'm going to do this is, again, set up a normal pulley, rope and weight setup. Grab my rope knot handle, whatever it is, in a thumbs up position. So this is what I'd be using whether I was in the crack. And then I'm going to be bringing that hand down, so extending the fist down towards my waist as if simulating a deep lock. But what's important on this particular one is I'm really careful to not allow my shoulder to dip, rotate forwards. So anterior rotation is I set the shoulder back and it's posteriorly rotated in that position before I then extend down towards my waist. Because what you'll find is when you go on a crack, if you rotate and come in forwards, it doesn't work very well on moves where you've got a right hand, so in this case, a right hand, and I was using a right foot. It's really poor for those very long moves. You have to be able to seat and rotate that shoulder backwards for the very biggest moves. So shoulder back, chest open, and then extending that hand down towards your waist. And you really feel the effort in both your tricep and also your shoulder in that position. Really good exercise. Another one that I use on working those deep locks. I have got two more relatively simple questions that I wanted to just answer before we sign off today. And the first one is, would I do yoga, flexibility, core, or basic strength training for the crack training? Which one would I kind of rate the highest and be the most useful? And I think for me, it still comes down to basic strength training. And that's gonna be whether it's with pulleys, ropes, drills on the wall, or just weights exercises. I still think that these have the best transfer to crack climbing. Yes, flexibility is important. Yes, doing core is important, but I don't think they have quite as much of a limiting factor. I will put one exception to that, is that on the flexibility, I think it's really important to be able to frog effectively if you're really into off-width climbing. Because what you'll find is in the off-width thing, you need to turn both of the toes out and bring the heels in centrally the crack. If you haven't got that flexibility, all the techniques associated with that are absolutely desperate. Last question was, lots of you have asked this, is a crack board. So it's like a fingerboard, but you put your hands into some jams and you hang it and you do static positions, just like dead hanging. Is this useful for crack climbing? I played around with these a little bit and I've used a similar sort of setup in the cellar, and I would say yes, it is most definitely useful. Really great tool. Definitely go for it. Don't overdo it because you lose the climbing specific movement, but just like dead hanging, it's a really great tool. So there you have it. I hope today has been useful. You've enjoyed this video. As ever, please do subscribe to the channel. We'll keep releasing stuff weekly, and I hope you've enjoyed today, and we'll see you again soon.